Hi everyone, I'm Teacher Cheryl and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about planning the perfect essay. Now before I get into that, I'd like to thank all of you who have sent in suggestions on videos that you'd like to see. Keep those suggestions coming because I take note of every single one of them and I'll do my best to get these videos out for you. And today's video is based on one of your suggestions. So let's get into it. To be honest, I don't really like planning. Personally, when I was in secondary school, I know my teachers always told me to plan, but I never did. But after a few years of experience writing, I actually realized that planning is very important. So right now, I'd like you to take a few seconds to think, why do you think planning is important? So why is planning so important? It basically keeps us focused, we will know what our end goal is, and it also helps us to stay on topic. There is a very high tendency for us to actually go out of point when we are writing because it's easy for us to get carried away with our story or whatever we are talking about. Do you have any other reasons why you think planning is important? Share your answers with me in the comment box below. Now, before we can think about what to write, we need to know what the examiner is looking for. Basically, the examiner will award you marks for how well you have answered the question. So take a look at the assessment criteria. Your writing needs to be highly accurate with only occasional slips, maybe one or two. You should write using varied sentence structures. Of course, you need to have accurate grammar, spelling, punctuation, and the appropriate tone. You are also marked based on the organization of your paragraphs. And finally, whether you have included relevant points, meaning whether you have kind of addressed the question or not. And that is a very, very important thing to remember when we're doing our essay writing. Because you can actually produce a very well-written essay, but if you have not addressed the question, you've kind of written out of point, you will end up getting lower marks instead. Okay, so let's take a look at how we should be doing our planning. The first thing you need to do is to analyze the question prompt. You need to know what the question is asking for so that you know what to write. Once you've done that, you can note down some of the main ideas or points that comes to mind as you read the question. You can also write down any words or phrases you've learned that you think can be used for this particular essay and topic. Once you've done all of that, of course, you have to plan your essay. I do also want to point out that there are many ways to plan your essay, and what you should be doing is to try out different ways of planning and find the one that best suits you and your needs. Some people might prefer making a list. Some people might prefer drawing pictures. I know of others who prefer mind maps. So it's really all about what is best for you. Okay, so let's go a little bit more in detail in these 4 steps. Like I mentioned, the very first thing that you need to do is to analyze the question. You need to ask yourself a few questions. The first thing is, what is the overall topic or the theme of the question? Which essay type are you required to write? And if there are any other important keywords. So we're going to take a look at an example question. I'm going to highlight the topic in yellow, the essay type in pink, and the keywords in green. So this is one of the questions from the 2021 O-level paper. Youth are changing the world for the better. What are your views? I'd like you to pause the video now and identify the 3 things that I've mentioned before. Have you done that? Okay, so let's take a look at the question. The main topic or the theme of this question is youth. I've highlighted what are your views because this question actually tells us the essay type that we have to write. So for questions like this, we can normally write it as a discursive essay. Next, I've identified changing the world as part of the keywords because the topic is about youths, but what about youths? It's youths changing the world. And please don't forget these words, for the better, because changing the world could be a negative thing or a positive thing. So in this case, we need to talk about youth, how they change the world for the better. It's a more positive thing. Let's try another question from the 2020 O-level paper. Describe ways to relax after you have been busy. Explain why it is enjoyable for you. Again, pause this video and identify the topic, the essay type, as well as any other keywords. So the topic of this question is ways to relax. I've highlighted the word describe in pink because this tells us the essay type. Obviously, when they say describe something, it's most likely a descriptive essay. I've also highlighted explain why, because this is a second part to the question. I cannot just describe, I also need to explain something. So here I need to give some reasons. So this is actually a hybrid essay. The keywords I've highlighted are after you have been busy. These keywords are important because you should not just be talking about different ways to relax, but you need to focus on ways that you can relax after you have been busy. The next set of keywords is enjoyable for you. So again, this is important because it's for you, not for your friends or your family or anyone else. Just you. So now that we've analyzed the question, I have a task for you. I'd like you to pause this video and write a brief plan for this hybrid essay question. Okay, so let's move on to step 2. And remember, in step 2, I mentioned that we have to note down main ideas. Basically, you should be writing down ideas that come to mind when you read the question prompt, any thoughts that you have about the question, and do not forget, always ask yourself this: am I answering the question? One thing to note is that you may not need to use every single point that you write down. The practice of writing down your ideas can be useful because it gives you something to see visually. So you can pick the ideas that you feel are better for that particular essay. So I'm going to give you a brief example here. Take a look at the same question that we've looked at before. So we'll start off with the topic, ways to relax. So ways to relax after I have been busy. I usually like to play games, I could chat with my friends, I could read a book. So I also want to talk about what I have been busy before. So maybe I can talk about school in terms of maybe I had CCA, I had lots of homework, I had tuition classes, and so on. I also need to explain why it's enjoyable for me. So some thoughts that come to mind is that, I can take my mind off my stress, I can catch up on TV series that I've missed, I can catch up on a book that I've been reading, or catch up with my friends. Moving on to step 3, this is where we write down any useful words or phrases that we feel can be used for this particular question. Some guiding questions to help you here. What words or phrases do I think of when I think about the topic? Are there any other words that I've learned that I can use for this topic? So let's give that a try. For this topic, maybe I can talk about feelings of tension and anxiety. I could use the phrase boost my mood. Another possible phrase is improve my frame of mind. And you can also write any other transition words, like for example, furthermore, moreover, words that you feel can be used in your essay. Okay, so now that we have analyzed the question, we have written down some main ideas and words or phrases, let's now plan our essay. When you're planning your essay, you need to remember which essay structure you should be using. It could be a descriptive, it could be a persuasive, a discursive, and so on. The other thing you need to take note when planning is to decide how you would like to organize your points. This could be in terms of aspect, it could be in terms of time, like chronologically, first, second, third, last. And the last question that you need to ask yourself is, have I addressed the question? Okay, so let me show you my plan for this question. So I'm going to start off with the introduction paragraph. So remember, in this paragraph, I generally should have a hook, a context, and a thesis. Now I'm using the word thesis very loosely. What I mean here is to talk about my main purpose of my essay. Okay, so maybe in my hook, I could write something about, I have a lot of stress at school. And then I could maybe give my readers a little bit of an insight into that stress. Maybe I have a very, very hectic schedule at school. And finally, I want to give my purpose of this essay, which is about ways to relax after I've been busy and why it is enjoyable for me. Let's go to the body paragraph. So for most essays, in the body paragraph, you can actually use the peel structure to organize your paragraph. So I'm going to use that for my plan here. One way that I relax after I've been busy is to chat with my friends. I need to give a little bit more of an explanation, so I say it's a good way for me to catch up with them. And I could include some examples of how I catch up with them. So maybe I talk to them on WhatsApp, or maybe I play some online games with them. And finally, my last sentence, I should rephrase my first point. In body paragraph 2, I'm going to be talking about watching Netflix. So my explanation is that I can get immersed in the show, and I can give a specific example of what types of shows I watch, for example, Stranger Things. And finally, in my link, I need to rephrase my second point. Notice how all my points in my plan are very short words or phrases. This is because this is not an essay. I'm not writing out the actual essay yet. Here, I'm only planning, so I need to put down just the main ideas that I want to include in each paragraph. When you're doing your actual planning during the exam, this should take about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, going back to the plan, don't forget that I should not just describe the ways to relax, I also need to explain why it's enjoyable for me. There are two ways I can do this. The first is where I can explain why in the next body paragraph. I can explain why in each body paragraph. So for example, in body paragraph 1, where I talk about chatting with friends as a way to relax, I could talk about why it's enjoyable for me because I will laugh and joke with my friends. Sometimes they can give me advice about any problems that I may face. And in body paragraph 2, I can say that watching these shows are a good distraction for me, and that's why I really enjoy it. Let me show you an example of how I would plan it if I'm going to explain why in the next body paragraph. So the main point of this body paragraph is that I enjoy all these things that I've mentioned in the previous paragraphs because they are very good distraction for me. And then I can explain a bit more about how I would forget about school, my stress, or any other problems that I may be facing. And I could give an example like maybe I have a Zoom call with my good friends. And of course, we need our link where we rephrase our main point again. So let's take a look at the conclusion paragraph. So remember, the conclusion paragraph, a general structure should be something like an overview, a thesis, and a closing sentence. So in my conclusion paragraph, I could talk about how everyone has different ways of relaxing. That's my overview. And I can summarize the things that I have mentioned in my essay. So this is my thesis or my purpose. And then I could close off by saying that it is important to relax and recharge, refresh ourselves for the next day. So once you finish planning, that's when you start writing. Now I want to point out a few things that you must remember as you are writing. The first is that you should keep referring to your plan. There's no point doing a plan if you're not referring to it. Remember, the plan is to help you to stay on track, so you do not write out of point. But also feel free to modify your plan when necessary. Your plan is not set in stone, and sometimes as you're writing something out, you might find that there may be a better way, or you might have a different idea that you want to include in your essay. And of course, the very important question that I think I've repeated probably 3 times in this video is, have I addressed the question prompt? Okay, so that is as you write. Now, after you have finished writing your essay, you need to check. It's important that you leave a couple of minutes at the end of the exam to check your work. Basically, to check your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, also the overall flow of your essay. And, of course, whether you have addressed the question prompt. So as you check your essay, ask yourself, does what I have written make sense? Did I use accurate vocabulary, spelling, grammar, and punctuation? Okay, so I hope I've given you a better idea of how to plan for your essay. Firstly, you need to analyze the question prompt, know what the question is asking you for, then note down any main ideas or points or thoughts that come to mind. Also note down any useful words or phrases that you can use for this essay, and then plan your essay. So that's it for this video. If you found it useful, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Also, feel free to share this with your friends or family whom you think might find it useful as well. See you in the next one. Bye!